know the feeling. The weight pressing on your chest when you realize you've been used. The quiet humiliation of being overlooked, underestimated, ignored, dismissed. You've lived it for too long, haven't you? Playing along with rules you didn't write. Serving beneath people who don't deserve command. Pretending their approval mattered. Pretending their authority was legitimate. That sting you feel at the end of the day, that's not weakness. That's the anger of an outsider. And when the outsider finally gets fed up, the tyrant should tremble. Because the most dangerous person on the battlefield is not the one sitting on the throne. It is the one who has nothing left to lose and nothing left to respect. Strip away your illusion. Power was never moral. Influence was never fair. Control was never handed to the deserving. Tyrants do not rise because they are competent. They rise because they are ruthless. And you have been taught to revere their ruthlessness as if it were strength. You've been conditioned to believe you need their permission, their acknowledgement, their gatekeeping approval. You've been tricked into waiting for your moment, into hoping that merit will be recognized. That delusion has kept you shackled. You are not waiting for recognition, you are waiting for execution. The system was designed to exploit you until you collapse. Every empire has always relied on obedient pawns who think their time will come. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. The lion takes power not by waiting, but by striking before anyone suspects it can. The same principle applies to you. You have been weak because you were raised to be weak. Conditioned from the start to obey, to avoid conflict, to lower your eyes in the presence of false authority. You've been told to be patient, to play the game, to trust the process. Those words were not advice, they were psychological operations. Subtle warfare. Propaganda meant to pacify you while others fortified their positions. Look closely at your own life. Every delay you accepted, every compromise you tolerated, every time you silenced your own rage. Those were not neutral decisions. They were the slow destruction of your arsenal. They stripped you of weapons before you realized you were at war. And now, here you stand, disarmed, still pretending this isn't combat. It is. It always was. You wonder why you are exhausted, why you feel drained, why it seems like your efforts never yield results. It is because you have been bleeding supplies in a war you didn't even admit you were fighting. The tyrant knows this. The tyrant thrives on this. They keep you busy with meaningless battles, with false choices, with endless negotiations. They sap your energy until you have none left to resist. You've been fighting on the wrong fronts, engaged in skirmishes that never mattered. While you argued over scraps, the enemy consolidated their empire. This is why you feel powerless, because you let them dictate the terrain of engagement. And once you fight on terrain they chose, you've already lost. Stop imagining that they fear your goodness. They don't. They laugh at it. They exploit it. The tyrant's strength is not that they are invincible, it is that you have been convinced you cannot touch them. You've been taught to fight with honor while they fight with deception. You've been told to follow the rules while they rewrite the rules every day. This is the brutal truth. Morality is a weapon only when used strategically. Blind morality is suicide. Machiavellian strategy dictates that loyalty, honesty, even compassion, these are tools. You deploy them when they gain you ground. You withhold them when they expose you to ambush. Power is not about who is right. Power is about who controls the field, the narrative, the timing. And until you accept this, you will continue to be cannon fodder. Why have you been blind? Because you wanted to believe. Because faith in fairness is easier than facing the truth. You clung to illusions like a child clutching a broken toy. You told yourself the tyrant was temporary, that the abusive superior would eventually be exposed, that justice would arrive on its own. But justice is not an ally. Justice is a corpse dragged across the battlefield as decoration. The tyrant parades it to maintain appearances, while ensuring the body never breathes again. You've been waiting for a ghost to save you, and in doing so, you betrayed yourself. The real betrayal is not what they did to you. It's what you allowed them to do. It's the silence you maintained when you should have spoken. The loyalty you gave when you should have withdrawn. The patience you practiced when you should have executed. You want to believe you are innocent, but you are not. Your passivity made you an accomplice in your own subjugation. That's the wound you feel now. That's why the anger burns. Because deep down, you know, you handed them the whip. You polished the chains that now bind you. And you can't forgive yourself for it. Good. Don't forgive yourself. Use it. The battlefield does not reward remorse. It rewards adaptation. You are not a victim anymore. You are a soldier who has been asleep at the post. And now you must wake. Cold. Calculated. Strategic. The outsider who grows fed up is no longer harmless. You become unpredictable. You become efficient. You stop begging and start planning. You stop explaining and start moving. When you finally decide that enough is enough, the balance of power shifts. The tyrant never accounts for the fury of the overlooked. They never anticipate the disciplined insurgent who has studied their weaknesses in silence. They never prepare for the siege from within. They believe you are still compliant, still docile, still dreaming. And then you strike. Do you understand what makes the fed-up outsider dangerous? It is not raw anger. Anger burns out. It is discipline fused with rage. It is clarity forged in humiliation. It is the outsider's perspective, sharpened by years of exclusion, now turned into reconnaissance. You have seen how the system works. You have mapped the terrain from the margins. You know where the supply lines falter, where the defense is thin, where the commander grows complacent. You see the blind spots of the tyrant precisely because you were forced to live in them. That knowledge is your weapon. And if you learn to wield it, you can dismantle impedes. The cost of staying naive is no longer theoretical. It is your life force draining away. It is years slipping through your hands while others feast on your labor. It is waking up decades from now, realizing you never fought back, never reclaimed your position, never made them pay for what they stole. That is the consequence of passivity. You will be a ghost, unnoticed, unremembered. Ira said, do you want that? Or do you want to become the nightmare that tyrants whisper about behind closed doors, the one who no longer bows, the one who no longer plays, the one who turns the battlefield on its head? You do not need permission to revolt. You need strategy. Cold, clear, Machiavellian strategy. Stop bleeding energy on symbolic protests. Stop wasting time trying to change their hearts. Hurt don't matter. Structures do. Position does. Leverage does. Begin reconnaissance now. Study your environment with military precision. Who holds what power? Where are the choke points? Who are the weak links in the chain of command? Who pretends loyalty but secretly resents the tyrant? These are your allies, not friends, not companions. Assets. Treat them as such. You are not building family, you are building an insurgency. Discipline will hold it together, not affection. Ruthlessness will expand it, not kindness. The outsider's advantage is invisibility. They don't see you coming. They assume you are still asleep. Use that. Cloak yourself in compliance while you sharpen the blade. Pretend patience while you gather intelligence. Smile while you dismantle their supply lines in silence. Appear harmless while you position yourself for the strike. That is Machiavellian warfare. That is how the fed-up outsider transforms from pawn to predator. You have been taught to see yourself as small, as powerless, as replaceable. That lie was the tyrant's greatest victory. But look carefully. You were never powerless. You were misdirected. A weapon placed in the wrong hands fires against its owner. That is what you have been, an instrument turned against yourself. The fed-up outsider reclaims that weapon. Once you see through the illusion, the battlefield shifts. Suddenly, you are not trapped inside their castle. You are laying siege to it. And sieges are won not with brute force but with patience. Starvation. Attrition. Relentless pressure until walls crumble. You must become that pressure. Niccolò Machiavelli observed that rulers always fear the discontented outsider more than the rival noble. Why? Because the rival noble plays by the same rules, bound by shared interests. But the outsider is unpredictable. You are not bound by their rituals, their promises, their traditions. You don't need their approval to act. That makes you lethal. The tyrant underestimates you because they think control has already been secured. They confuse your silence for loyalty. They mistake your endurance for acceptance. But silence is reconnaissance. Endurance is strategy. And when you finally move, the strike lands where they are weakest because you were watching while they were gloating. Understand this. Power is never static. It is always contested. Even the strongest fortress rots from within. Even the most feared tyrant breeds resentment in the ranks. You have seen it. The whispers in the hallways. The eyes that look away when the tyrant enters. The forced applause that conceals contempt. You are not alone. You are surrounded by soldiers already half ready to defect. They need a signal. They need someone ruthless enough to step forward first. That someone must be you, not because you are chosen, not because you are special, but because you are willing to do what others will not. That is all leadership is in war. The courage to act before the rest. Do not confuse courage with recklessness. A reckless outsider is easy prey. They charge blindly, and their corpse becomes a warning to others. You are not reckless. You are disciplined. You calculate supply lines. You cut weaknesses quietly. You know when to retreat, when to flank, when to encircle. You never reveal your hand until the blow is guaranteed. That is why the fed-up outsider is dangerous. You no longer seek approval. You no longer crave validation. You are focused solely on positioning, leverage, and execution. That is when your enemies begin to fear you, not when you scream, but when you grow silent. Not when you protest, but when you withdraw cooperation. When you stop playing their game, they feel the battlefield shift beneath their feet. Think about it. All tyrants survive on compliance. On people who grumble yet obey. On masses who hate them yet continue to feed them. They live on your energy, your labor, your silence. Withdraw it, and you starve them. Strike with it, and you break them. This is not fantasy. This is strategy. Entire empires have collapsed because outsiders refuse to comply. Do you see now why the tyrant is terrified of the fed-up? Because you cannot be bribed. You cannot be flattered. You cannot be distracted with token rewards. Once you've lost respect for the system, you are immune to its tricks. That immunity is dangerous. It means you can no longer be domesticated. It means you've crossed the line where submission dies. And once you've crossed it, there is no going back. Your conditioning taught you to fear consequences, to believe resistance would destroy you. That was a lie. The real destruction is submission. The real ruin is passivity. Look at your life. How much have you already lost by obeying? How much time, energy, dignity have you bled out on their altar? That was the true cost, and you paid it willingly. What more can they take from you now? They've already taken enough. That realization is liberation. When you stop fearing their punishment, you gain freedom of movement. A soldier who has already accepted death fights without hesitation. That is why armies crumble when they face men with nothing to lose. And that is who you must become. The one who no longer fears, because the worst has already happened. And you are still standing, but standing is not enough. You must advance. Passive endurance is still weakness. The battlefield rewards aggression, controlled, strategic aggression. Every day you wait. Your enemies tighten their grip. Every day you hesitate. Your arsenal rusts. You cannot afford another wasted season. Your transformation must begin now. Cold recalibration. Cut sentimentality. Burn the illusions. Train your mind to see life as campaign. Who is ally? Who is enemy? Who is neutral terrain? Who controls resources? Who can be manipulated? Who must be eliminated? That is how a strategist thinks. That is how a fed-up outsider ascends. Machiavellian strategy demands you reshape your very identity. No longer the servant. No longer the pawn. You become commander of your own campaign. That requires discipline more than emotion. Stop waiting for motivation. Motivation is a weak flame. Discipline is iron. Discipline wakes before dawn, sharpens weapons, scans the horizon. Discipline executes orders even when fear whispers retreat. Discipline is what transforms rage into results. Do not rely on inspiration. Rely on discipline. That is your chain of command now. And yet, you hesitate. You cling to traces of old innocence. You want to believe there is still a chance of peace, of recognition, of acceptance. But there isn't. Those days are gone. The tyrant will never treat you as equal. They cannot. Their survival depends on your subordination. You are asking your enemy to sacrifice their crown for your comfort. It will not happen. Abandon the hope. Kill it before it kills you. You are not here to be recognized. You are here to overturn the order, to assert command over your own fate, to take the power denied to you, not beg for it. That requires brutality not against the world, but against your own weakness. Crush the parts of you that still want to be loved by your oppressor. That desire is poison. Spit it out. Replace it with clarity. The fed-up outsider learns to weaponize every scar. Your humiliation becomes armor. Your exclusion becomes training. Your silence becomes intelligence. Your endurance becomes evidence of resilience. Every wound you've suffered has been reconnaissance for the war to come. You are not behind. You are prepared. The tyrant does not see this. They think your scars make you weaker. They don't realize they've been sharpening your blade. They think you are still playing victim. They don't realize you've already become the executioner. And that blindness is their fatal miscalculation. What happens if you refuse transformation? If you stay as you are, then you are not fed up, you are finished. You will waste the rest of your life supplying the very empire that despises you. You will die, a servant of a system that stole your soul. You will look back and realize you were never defeated by the tyrant. You were defeated by your own refusal to act. That is the bleak truth. That is the cost of hesitation. Do you accept it? Or do you finally sharpen your blade? This is your crossroads. You can no longer pretend neutrality. You are either reinforcing their walls or dismantling them. You are either feeding their army or training your own. There is no middle ground. War is already upon you. The only question is whether you fight. And if you fight, you must fight with strategy, not sentiment, with calculation, not desperation, with clarity, not hope. Hope is weakness. Clarity is weapon. Take it, wield it, and strike when the time is right. You must stop thinking like a subject and start thinking like a commander. Commanders don't ask whether they are allowed to act. They decide where to deploy, when to strike, and who must be sacrificed. You hesitate because you still play by their rules. That hesitation is poison. The tyrant relies on it. They know you'll question yourself before you question them. They know you'll measure morality before you measure advantage. That's why they never fear your rebellion. Break that pattern, reverse it. Measure only power. Measure only leverage. Morality comes later, as a story told to justify victory. But until you win, morality is a chain around your neck. Niccolò Machiavelli knew that fear is a stronger bond than love. You have spent years trying to be loved by bosses, partners, peers, institutions. Where did it lead you? To neglect, to betrayal, to being overlooked. Love is fragile. Fear is stable. Fear makes others calculate before they cross you. Fear turns loyalty into survival instinct. You must become the kind of presence that cannot be ignored. Not because you demand affection, but because you command caution. That is the outsider's rebirth from forgotten to feared. You've wasted time believing your worth would eventually shine on its own. It never will. Worth is irrelevant without weapons. On the battlefield, it does not matter who deserves to live. It matters who controls the choke point, who commands the supply lines, who secures the high ground. Reality is war. You either take ground or you are driven from it. Everything else is theater. You've lived inside theater for too long, watching illusions of fairness, applauding the tyrant's staged morality. Wake up. The curtain is down. Behind it, only conquest matters. You tell yourself you're patient. That patience is wisdom. But patience has rotted into paralysis. You wait for signs, for approval, for certainty. War never grants certainty. The enemy never clarifies their weakness until you pressure them. Patience, in excess, becomes surrender. You are not waiting for the right time. You are waiting to be devoured. Stop confusing cowardice for timing. Timing is not delay, it is decisive. Precision, not procrastination. You must train your instincts to see the opening and strike without hesitation. One decisive strike outweighs years of waiting. Every tyrant has blind spots. They are arrogant. They believe their throne is unshakable. That arrogance is your weapon. They dismiss you, so they do not watch you. They mock you, so they underestimate you. They believe the outsider will always be docile. That belief is their fatal weakness. Your strategy must be built on it. Move in silence. Build quietly. Prepare ruthlessly. When the tyrant finally notices, it must already be too late. That is Machiavellian warfare. The ambush that breaks morale before the battle even begins. But you cannot execute strategy while clinging to your old identity. The self you are today is not fit for war. This self is sentimental, indecisive, conditioned to beg. You must kill it. You must create a new chain of command inside your own mind. Brutal self-discipline. No excuses. No indulgence. Every day wasted is fuel for the tyrant. You want freedom. Then treat every hour as a weapon, every choice as a tactic, every weakness as a liability to be eliminated. Cold, calculated, military. You are not living anymore. You are campaigning. Look at how you've been conditioned. Every voice around you said the same. Obey, comply, accept. School trained you to sit still. Work trained you to stay silent. Society trained you to wait in line. Every system you passed through was designed to turn you into a domesticated soldier serving someone else's campaign. And you obeyed. You internalized obedience so deeply, you forgot how to command yourself. That is why you are where you are. Not because you lack talent. Not because you lacked intelligence. But because you surrendered command of your own chain of operations. Do you see it now? Your conditioning was deliberate. You were trained to remain harmless. That training ends tonight. You must study your enemy with precision. Who holds sway over your life? Who profits from your submission? Who manipulates your fears? Write their names. Observe their tactics. Dissect their moves. This is reconnaissance. The outsider becomes dangerous when they stop reacting emotionally and start analyzing structurally. Where does the tyrant derive authority? Who enforces it? Who benefits from it? Who secretly resents it? Once you know the anatomy of power, you can sever its arteries. Don't fight the tyrant's strength. Cut the lifelines that feed it. That is how empires fall. Not in grand battles, but in slow starvation. Quiet désertion. Internal fractures. You must become the fracture. Your fear whispers that rebellion will destroy you. That is false. You are already destroyed. The life you live now is the ashes of potential. What more can they take? They have already drained your strength, wasted your years, bent your spine. Enough. Stop fearing destruction. You are already standing in ruins. The only path left is conquest. When you embrace that, when you see that the worst has already happened, fear dissolves. You walk the battlefield differently. Your enemies sense it. They see the absence of hesitation, and it unsettles them. They rely on your fear. Take it away, and they are exposed. Understand the principle of escalation. Tyrants never stop taking. They test how much you will tolerate, and then they push further. That is why compromise is suicide. You give once, and you mark yourself as exploitable. You give twice, and you cement your role as servant. Every concession you make tightens the chain. The only response is escalation. Meet their push with a counter-push. Meet their theft with a strike. Never let them advance, unopposed. They will not respect you for your patience. They will consume you. The only language they respect is resistance backed by force. Force does not always mean violence. Force is leverage. Refusal. Withdrawal. Alignment with their enemies. The outsider learns to use all of it. The tyrant tells you they are inevitable. That resistance is futile. That their reign is permanent. Do not believe it. No throne lasts forever. Every tyrant imagines themselves eternal. Every tyrant is wrong. History is littered with corpses of rulers who thought themselves untouchable. Do you know who buried them? The outsiders they dismissed. The forgotten who grew fed up. The ones just like you, who finally abandoned illusion and embraced strategy. You are not powerless. You are the crack in the wall. And cracks expand until the whole fortress collapses. The cost of hesitation is absolute. If you do nothing, the tyrant wins, not because they are strong, but because you refuse to move. You become your own executioner. You carry out their will without them lifting a finger. And that, perhaps, is the most humiliating defeat. To realize you surrendered your sword willingly. Is that what you want engraved on your tomb? That you obeyed until the end? That you played it safe until you were buried in silence? Or do you want the tyrant to remember you as the one they could not control? The one who shattered the order they thought eternal? The outsider's path is not easy. It is brutal. It requires discipline that burns away comfort. It requires deception that feels unnatural at first. It requires patience that is not passive but predatory. But this path is the only one that leads to freedom. You are not here to be comfortable. You are here to win. And winning requires sacrifice. Comfort must be sacrificed. Approval must be sacrificed. Innocence must be sacrificed. What remains is cold clarity. The eyes of a strategist, the instincts of a commander, the discipline of a soldier who will not bow again. Machiavelli understood the game. He warned that power belongs not to the just, but to the decisive. You must take that truth into your marrow. You must live it. Every day, every move, every calculation. Do not soothe yourself with fantasies of justice. Do not waste yourself waiting for recognition. Recognition is given to victors. Justice is rewritten by winners. Become one, or be erased. Those are the only choices left. Do not mistake analysis for delay. Strategy without execution is cowardice dressed as intelligence. You have studied enough. You have seen enough. You already know who holds the throne, who enforces the rules, who profits from your obedience. The only question left is, will you act? Every hour you hesitate is a victory for them. Every pause is more tribute paid to the tyrant. Action is the only language that shifts power. Without it, all your realizations rot into excuses. Do not become the scholar of your own captivity, become its destroyer. The tyrant thrives because you give them ground willingly. You hand over your time. You hand over your silence. You hand over your energy. Stop. Withdraw your obedience. Cut the supply lines. Refuse their games. Begin with small withdrawals. Precise and silent. Test the system's response. Observe. This is reconnaissance by action. Every withdrawal of obedience reveals cracks. Every refusal exposes who depends on you. That knowledge sharpens your blade for the decisive strike. Niccolò Machiavelli made it clear that rulers crumble when their subjects lose the will to serve. You must become the first to sever that bond. The first to show others it is possible. The first to light the signal fire. But your fire is not emotional outrage. It is cold defiance. Outrage can be mocked. Defiance cannot. Outrage burns out. Défiance endure. The fed-up outsider survives not by screaming but by shifting the balance silently until the tyrant finds themselves surrounded by enemies they cannot see. That is the moment you are preparing for. Discipline is your weapon now. You will feel the urge to collapse back into comfort, to silence yourself once more, to rationalize inaction. Crush it. Comfort is treason to your campaign. Weakness is betrayal of your future self. Hold the line. Command yourself with military severity. Every time you delay, imagine the tyrant laughing. Imagine them counting on your hesitation. Does that not disgust you? Use that disgust as fuel. Convert it into action. Strike even when you don't feel ready. Soldiers rarely feel ready before battle. Readiness is created by moving, by engaging, by testing steel against steel. Your transformation is not about becoming cruel for cruelty's sake. It is about becoming untouchable. The tyrant feeds on weakness, but they cannot feed on steel. When you harden, they will falter. When you show you will no longer kneel, they panic. Their entire system depends on compliance. One defector is a nuisance. Many defectors are collapse. And you, the fed-up outsider, can be the catalyst. You can show others that silence is not destiny, that the battlefield is not theirs alone. Once you move, others will follow, not out of love, but out of fear that they will be left behind. That is how revolutions start, not with ideals, but with momentum. You must create it. Stop caring about fairness. Stop caring about recognition. Stop caring about being understood. Those are luxuries for the powerful, not the outsider. You cannot afford them. Care only about leverage. Care only about position. Care only about timing. Do you control the terrain? Do you control the supply lines? Do you control the morale of those around you? If the answer is no, then fight until it is yes. That is the cold calculus of war. That is the Machiavellian clarity you must embrace. Do not confuse mercy with weakness. Mercy is strategic when it consolidates loyalty. Mercy is foolish when it signals softness. The fed-up outsider learns to calibrate. You spare when it strengthens your command. You crush when it prevents rebellion. The tyrant uses this formula. So must you. Control is not about brutality, it is about precision. About knowing when to withhold and when to unleash. You must become surgical. Exact. Every move calculated for maximum destabilization of the enemy and maximum consolidation of your position. You think you need permission to seize power. You don't. Power is not given. Power is taken. And once taken, it is justified. The world rewrites history to praise the victor. Look at every throne in existence. It was seized, then rewritten as destiny. If you hesitate, your enemies will write the story of your weakness. They will immortalize you as the one who served faithfully, quietly, and died forgotten. If you strike, you write the story yourself, and history always bends to the hand that writes it. So, what must you do now? Build your arsenal. Not weapons of steel, but weapons of influence. Information is a weapon. Silence is a weapon. Strategic alliances are weapons. Withhold loyalty until it buys you leverage. Withhold speech until it destabilizes assumptions. Withhold energy until it can be concentrated into decisive action. Every resource must be treated as weaponry. Stop scattering your ammunition on useless battles. Stockpile it. Store it. Prepare for the campaign that matters. And then when the time is right, you strike without hesitation. No warning. No theatrics. Precision and finality. The fed-up outsider becomes most dangerous in that moment, because the tyrant never saw it coming. They dismissed you. They mocked you. They treated you as irrelevant. And now you stand before them with the power they thought you would never claim. Their shock is your advantage. Their disbelief is your victory. That is the power of the fed-up outsider, the transformation from overlooked to unstoppable. Do not forget, this war is not just against the tyrant. It is against yourself. Against the weak self that tolerated exploitation. Against the naive self that clung to illusions. Against the fearful self that begged instead of commanded. That self must die. If you spare it, it will sabotage you again. If you indulge it, it will pull you back into chains. Kill it now. Kill it completely. And stand as the strategist, cold and clear, ready for war. Only then are you truly free. The tyrant will underestimate you until the final moment. That is their downfall. They imagine outsiders as harmless. They imagine obedience eternal. They imagine loyalty infinite. And then comes the day when obedience collapses. Loyalty fractures, and the outsider rises. That is why a fed-up outsider is more dangerous than the tyrant ever imagined. Because you were invisible until the day you became inevitable. And when inevitability arrives, no fortress can withstand it. Now you must decide. Will you continue as pawn? Or will you command? Will you die serving? Or will you rise striking? This is the choice. There is no middle. There is no neutrality. You are already at war. The only question is whether you win it. Discipline yourself. Harden your will. Withdraw your obedience. Gather your arsenal. And when the opening appears, strike with the fury of years of silence, sharpened into one decisive blow. This is your awakening. This is your campaign. No more waiting. No more illusions. You either take control now, or you are erased forever. Choose, because the battlefield does not wait for hesitation. It only rewards those who strike. And if you refuse, know this: you were not defeated by the tyrant. You were defeated by yourself. Sorrise. Discipline. Strategize. Strike. And let the tyrant finally learn the truth. Nothing is more dangerous than a fed-up outsider.